Question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Mr Speaker, can I first of all thank the member who's just resumed his seat, the Minister in whose name the bill is before the House, and say that I appreciate the comments he made in relation to our Select Committee work. Our Select Committee has worked pretty rigorously on what is quite a small bill, but one that we thought was really important. But I am disappointed that he chose to politicise this bill, given the fact that our Select Committee has worked so hard together, regardless of which of the three parties represented on that bill. The minister just got up and read his speech. Perhaps he might have considered reading it prior to that, because then I'm sure that he would have detected how overly political he had made an issue that wasn't politicised at all throughout the Select Committee process. Mr Speaker, I want to also acknowledge the leadership of our entire Select Committee, which broke new ground in the processing of this bill. We decided that we would not just put an ad in the major dailies calling for submissions. We would leap forward into this current century, well ahead of the rest of Parliament, I have to say, despite the best efforts of some of our advisers to the committee and even to the concern of the Clerk's office. We decided we would advertise this bill electronically, that people could go on the internet and find out that we were calling for submissions. It was great to break new ground in that way. We did it within the existing budget, but we thought that it was a good process for Parliament to go through. So it was with some excitement when I saw that Internet New Zealand were appearing before the Select Committee as one of the 12 submitters who put in a submission on this bill, and I asked them where they'd heard about the calling of submissions, where they'd heard about this bill, expecting them to say they'd read it through this groundbreaking measure that we had made in calling for submissions, and they said that they had read it on the regular Clerk's page of Parliament. So it was a great disappointment to me, because, it was a great disappointment to me that despite this huge leap forward, no submitters had responded to it in the way that we had hoped. So Internet New Zealand gave us a very, very helpful submission, actually, as did the Privacy Commissioner, as the Minister mentioned in his speech. We only got 12 submissions to it. It is a fairly specific bill, but it does achieve a lot. It does allow people to verify their identity online and across different government departments and agencies, and clearly this is important. The primary concern, of course, is that of identity theft. We don't want people to be able to use that access to represent themselves as another person. But, Mr Speaker, the reality is that is possible prior to internet access being available, and we've seen some pretty distressing cases of that in recent times, where people have represented themselves as being somebody else. But actually, people are more anxious about the ability of identity fraud to occur under this system than they are under our traditional systems. The reality is that is not the case, but I think it's important that through this process we also tried to deal with the perception and made sure that the process of protecting the system were rigorous. The Minister went through the number of changes that we made. I'm sorry that I hadn't been alerted in advance to the change that the Minister noted as an SOP. I hadn't picked that up. I've been at a Select Committee this morning, so I'll have a look at that, but I'm sure that if it's exactly as he outlined, it shouldn't be a problem for us to support it. But we did also consider at our Select Committee the changes that are outlined in the bill, and it caused me some reflection as to why in such a small bill that was quite straightforward, and one that has quite a lot of overlap with a bill which will be considered later in the day, that was looked at by the previous Government Administration Committee, why there were still so many areas that needed amendment. And I'd recommend to the Minister that he give further reflection to this. I don't think that with a small bill, one that doesn't have any political edge to it at all particularly, that we had to make so many changes before we were confident that it met the standards that we considered appropriate as a select committee. So I just leave that with the Minister for further reflection, because I don't think it actually should be the case. I look forward to the progress of this bill. It's been a pleasure for the select committee to work, and I want to acknowledge all the members of the select committee who put a lot of effort into it. Nobody dozed off at any time at all during the select committee, which was very fortunate because it did require some rigour. Mr Okenvold kept us all on our toes from the National Party side, and Gareth Hughes representing the Green Party, and my colleague Trevor Mallard. The other thanks that I'd like to give, Mr Speaker, before I conclude, is to that of the officials. We did have, as I say, a number of amendments that were made, and they worked really hard and really diligently, paid close attention to the points that the committee members made, and I think we've reported the bill back and now happy to progress it in a much better state that it came to us in.
Mr Speaker.
I call the honourable member Chris Okenvold.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.